today. The following is going to be a crash out. Parental discretion is advised. Today we're going to discuss Francis Ngannou and all of the mistakes he continues to make in his career. We're going to discuss Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. And we're going to make a brief mention of Ilia Topuria and Manel Kape. All of this and more on today's episode of Matter of Fact MMA. What's up? What's happening? Let's go. What's up, guys? We right back at it. We right back with it. It's your boy Matt, and today we're going to do a little bit of crashing out. Okay? We're going to do a little bit of crashing out. But let's get started first with the tippy top on some sad news, but at the same time, it's like, salute to this man. Shout out to this man. Ilia Topuria has took to his social media, and has said that he is going to be taking a little bit more time away from the sport. Now, no one really knows for sure what this means, how long he'll be away from the sport, if he's going to vacate his title. Is the fight between Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje for the undisputed championship? We don't know all of that yet. What we knew a few weeks back is that Ilia Topuria was going to be stepping away, probably to the summer, to the White House card, and make his return. But now he's taking to his socials, and he's talking about he might be taking a little bit more time away. Shout out to this man. You know, I think it doesn't get talked about enough in professional sports when you're talking about the stars of different sports. That, man, it takes a lot to be able to perform or play or fight at that high level, at the highest level. You know what I'm saying? When he was literally on top of the world and his team could not be beaten, could not be stopped. Michael Jordan walked away from the sport of basketball, from the NBA back in the 90s. And when he tells the story, I know there's a lot of rumors and conspiracies that have to do with gambling and why he walked away. But what the man said out of his own mouth, whether or not you believe it's the truth, he said that after he lost his father, he just didn't have it in him to continue to compete in basketball. Because part of him soaring and going high and accomplishing all of these things in the NBA, part of that was his father's dream. And he was driven, and he chased these championships and these MVP awards and everything based out of his father. And he enjoyed seeing his father happy that he was accomplishing these things. So once his father was no longer there, it didn't mean as much to him until he took time away from the sport, until that itch and that urge to compete came back. So shout out to Ilia Topuria, because when you're looking at this, man, he's going through a lot of personal problems, a lot of personal issues. From what I understand, I don't know if she was just his fiance or if they were already married. But he is going through a messy divorce, I believe. I think they were already married with his wife. They have children involved in this, and he has a lot going on. And I take my hat off to the man, even though I still got my hat on, because, man, you don't want to be out there competing at the top of the sport and take a loss because you're not all the way invested. When you've seen interviews from Conor McGregor, when he returned to mixed martial arts after fighting Floyd Mayweather, he talked about he wasn't really dialed in to fight Khabib. He wasn't really all the way there. His training camp, he wasn't really all the way there. He was still getting drunk off whiskey. I don't know if it's proper 12. You know, proper 12 ain't the best drinking. If you got a night of drinking proper 12, it might not be a good night for you. I'll just say that. It ain't the best. But he talked about he wasn't dialed in. He wasn't really, truly prepared. He didn't really want to fight that fight. You know what I'm saying? And his career never truly recovered after taking that L to Khabib Nurmagomedov. So, and speaking of him, Khabib Nurmagomedov walked away from the sport because his father passed. And he felt like this, he actually said this was father's dream. And he didn't want to continue with that. So shout out to Ilia Topuria. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully he gets himself together and he's able to come back. We can see that Ilia, the El Matador, continue to chase the heights and conquer the sport as he already had been. Now, let's get off into a fighter that I'm not hating on. You know what I'm saying? I'm not hating on. I've always liked this fighter. I studied him for a long time. His story, his backstory was so tremendous given where he was coming from. You know what I'm saying? From, for lack of a better term, the slavery in Cameroon. You know what I'm saying? Fleeing Cameroon, fleeing to France, having to cross all of these crazy ups and downs and all of this turmoil, and he could have been arrested, he could have been locked away forever, all of these things to escape to France seeking his freedom, to sleep on the floors of MMA gyms in France, to try to learn something. His original goal was to be a professional boxer. But as he's sleeping on these gyms and he's training in mixed martial arts, they're like, yo, dude, I think you could probably be a mixed martial arts fighter. And then for him to level up and level up and level up and make it all the way to the UFC, be an undefeated fighter, take a loss to the great Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight championship, and then climb back, deal with a few fights that didn't necessarily go his way, but to climb back to facing Stipe Miocic and then to knock him out and become the heavyweight champion of the world. Then to get into a contract dispute with the UFC, right? And to go into a fight, compromise with a bad, completely ruined knee. I mean, to go into a fight with Cyril Gane for the heavyweight championship of the world, trying to defend your heavyweight championship, and your knee is shredded. Your knee is hanging on by a rusty hinge. You know what I'm saying? It's a rusty hinge. Creak, 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 creak. Making squeaky noises. You know what I'm talking about? To go into there and to defeat Cyril Gane by sheer will, heart, and determination, because he was outmatched because the man was injured. And he turned into D1 and had to wrestle his way to a win. Of course, I am talking about Francis Ngannou, who I've always been a huge fan of. But I must crash out real quick because, bro, what the F is going on with Francis Ngannou? What is going on with Francis Ngannou? And I'm saying this because a few years ago, this is what's so interesting. When you see trailblazers in any sport or any walk of life, you got hanger-ons, you got clingers that cling to this trailblazer trying to make their way, right? And you watch Francis Ngannou battle the UFC because he wanted the right to be able to go box. He felt like that was owed to him, right? And a lot of people got behind him. And I kind of felt like, all right, Francis, you know, you're trying to do your thing. I don't know how this is going to play out. But to see the Ariel Helwanis of the world, who always has a bone to pick with the UFC, and to see so many MMA journalists who are at odds with the UFC that latched on to the big broad shoulders of Francis Ngannou, like, he's our savior. He's also against the UFC. We're going to climb with him, right? And the MMA guru made a point of this back in the day when he was on the come up of Ariel Helwani, and this has been said about him quite a few times, might end up going down in history as the man to ruin Francis Ngannou's MMA career. And this is where I'm going with this. The man leaves the UFC, right? He goes to the PFL. Now, I remember I'm starting to make content at this time and I'm thinking, bro, what are you doing, dude? I'm saying this as much. I'm getting lambasted online for this. But I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Because anybody that had sense, that wasn't a social justice warrior and just wanted it all to work out. Well, I just wanted it all to work out. Man, watch out, bro. For those of us that know life is real, and sometimes it doesn't work out, and sometimes what you feel like is going to be the absolute best path and what is going to deliver everything that you want might not necessarily go that way. And this is what I'm saying. Everyone, all these social justice warriors, your Ariel Helwanis of the world, multiple journalists on MMAfighting.com. I know Ariel's now with Crown Sports, but still, all of these people, all of these journalists, the Luke Thomases of the world, the Brian Campbells of the world from Morning Combat, all of these people were latched on to Francis Ngannou, and he's fighting for his rights and his freedom. Newsflash, the mofo was already free, bro. He already beat that. He already beat that when he traveled from Cameroon to France. Y'all just jumped on it a little bit too late. Bro, y'all just don't like Dana White. And y'all just don't like the UFC, even though Dana White and the UFC is what allows you to have a effing voice and to make your little dusty content, right? That's why y'all latched onto him. Yeah, he had a tremendous story. Yeah, he seemed like a tremendous dude. But that's what y'all latched onto. But I'm watching the whole time, and the homie, you're like, yeah, now he's going to go away and make all the money that he was never going to make in the UFC, and and he'll have financial freedom. And the reality of it is in any other scenario or story, SJW, social justice warriors, they don't want you to go for the money. They don't want you to go for the profit. They want you to go for the glory, for the legacy, for the name. You know what I'm saying? They never want anybody to go for the money. You know what I'm saying? They hate all the execs that go for the money. They hate all of that. But when it fits your narrative and your story, oh, y'all will pump this man up. So Francis goes for the money. He signs with the PFL for like $8 million, right? And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, man, who the F is he going to fight in the PFL, bro? Who in the F is he going to fight in the PFL? And he's like, I secured a $2 million bag for anyone that I fight in the PFL. And I'm thinking, who is you going to fight in the PFL? You know what I'm saying? There's nobody over there. And they're touting they were going to get Verdum for a while. And they were going to get whoever, bro. Whoever. It's like Junior Dos Santos is what I was thinking of. Man, stop, bro. I get it that he was going for the money and he wanted that. But at the same time, this is where he's at right now in his career is what I foresaw. And Francis Ngannou is a special individual, human being, and mixed martial arts fighter. And his story is better to be connected to that. And I'm going to explain why. So he goes to the PFL, right? He goes over there, but instantly he's going to go fight Tyson Fury in boxing. Now, we all were like, I don't know, Francis, if that's going to work out for you. I don't really know. I don't know if that's the right way to go. Tyson Fury is, not really out of his prime yet, and I don't know if you should do this. But Francis did it, and we watched something amazing that night in which he almost dethroned the sitting, reigning, lineal heavyweight champion of the world in boxing. And it was an amazing feat to see. And then after that, he goes and he beats the brakes off Renan Ferreira, if I'm saying his name right, in the PFL. Right? And then after that, the man goes back to face Anthony Joshua. Right? And he gets waxed and he gets knocked out. And then after that, tragedy strikes him in his personal life, where he loses his son. And as a father of a son, I can tell you that my hat's off to the man. I salute him because he was able to come back from that. And honestly, now that I think about it, I apologize. My timeline was a little messed up. He had already come back. He had already fought Anthony Joshua. You know what I'm saying? He comes back to the PFL after the loss of his son, and that's when he beat Renan Ferreira. And it was this beautiful moment that he had overcome that. And then more tragedy struck him in his personal life, and it was an accident, and I believe a car accident, something of that thing. I don't know all the details, so I'm not going to get into that. But I'm sitting there thinking the whole time, man. I know Francis made the tremendous bag in boxing, and he made all of this money, and everyone's like, he made more money than he would ever make in the UFC. Okay, maybe off of purses that he was earning from the UFC, but let's talk about that. The position he's at now, he just did an interview with Ariel Helwani last week. Horrible interview in which Francis Ngannou came off clearly as the bad guy. And Ariel Helwani is like doing everything he can to drum out this narrative that Ariel is always championed and pushed Francis Ngannou, pushed him severely to leave the UFC, to seek his freedom and all of these things, and publicize all of this, and wouldn't hesitate to interview him and let him take shots at Dana White and the UFC and all these things, and kept pushing this narrative. Now he's interviewing the man, and he's trying to find out how he feels about Dana White making comments about him laying his hands on Dana White, laying his hands on Hunter Campbell, wanting him to, dispute this, wanting him to say, no, this didn't happen, Dana's a liar and all this. And Francis Ngannou wouldn't do any of that. And what that told me is there was some level of truth to what Dana White said about Francis Ngannou, his demands that he was making of the UFC, the way he was treating people in the office, and the way he was treating Dana White and the matchmakers. Now, I'm not a Dana White fan or nothing, but I recognize what the man is accomplishing, and the sport that he is now, he's in play, bro. I ain't saying he calls all the shots in the UFC or mixed martial arts, but he's definitely at the table. And what you're seeing here is Francis Ngannou had all the chances in the world, all the time to rebuttal, all of the chances to go against everything Dana White said, and he did not do any of that. And stupid Ariel is sitting there trying, what do you think about, Francis, what do you think about Dana White? And he's trying desperately to continue his own narrative. And when that didn't work, he gave up at journalism in that particular interview because he wasn't highlighting anything else that might be interesting about this point in Francis Ngannou's life or career. He talked a little bit about what's next, but we've seen Ariel pull all of these emotions and everything, because he really is a good journalist, out of a lot of fighters. And he didn't do any of that. He just tapped out. We've seen him interviewing people that you can tell Ariel absolutely despises. We've seen him interview people that made anti-Semitic comments before. And Ariel tapped out because Francis wasn't going along with the narrative that Ariel's been pushing ever since he was advising the man to leave the UFC. Back when he just beat Cyril Gane. And that really pissed me off, bro. You know what I'm saying? Not personally, but just from a standpoint of like, if you had been a little bit more impartial in the beginning, because you could tell there is some sort of a relationship or friendship between Francis and Ariel. Who knows how it originally would have turned out. And so the point that we're at now, which is going to lead me to my next topic. Francis Ngannou, his contract is about to end with the PFL. He has nobody to fight in the PFL. And PFL can't drum up anybody for him to fight. And Hanan Ferreira just went out there and beat Nemkov over the weekend. But who really wants to see Big Francis versus Hanan Ferreira again? And if Hanan Ferreira should somehow be able to pull off the win over Francis, who's trying to see that? His legacy should not be built off the back of Francis Ngannou and what Francis has accomplished. So there's nobody for him to fight in the PFL. And Francis is slowly dwindling away, and his legacy is evaporating because this is big 2025 and about to be big 2026. And the news cycle moves quick. And the younger folks, as you see the gray in my beard, they ain't tripping on the past. They not worried about the older legacies. You know what I'm saying? And so now, Francis Ngannou has done nothing in the PFL, and he's left nothing but a bad taste in their mouth because he hasn't been there for PFL France for whatever reason. You know, you let him tell it. He had other obligations and this and that, but whatever. I know he was going through some personal trauma, so maybe that played a role in it and the timing didn't work out, so I'm not going to fault him on that. But he's done nothing in the PFL. And after getting waxed by Anthony Joshua in boxing, you're not just going to instantly rebound. I mean, and off the top of my head, the only person I can think of he should fight in boxing that would be a big box office smash, and I don't know why they've never been able to make this fight thus far, is Deontay Wilder. If it's not Deontay Wilder, who is this man gonna box, bro? Nobody's trying to see him against Chisora or anybody like that. You know what I'm saying? Dylan White. Nobody trying to see all that. You know what I mean? So, Francis Ngannou, my dude, what's he gonna do? The bridge is permanently burned on the UFC side. Permanently burned. And Ariel Helwani and Luke Thomas's and all the other journalists, they saw to that. I mean, you know, regardless of Francis's decisions, y'all's continual content creation of this narrative about Dana and he's evil and the UFC is this evil empire organization and we with the Ewoks and we trying to rise up with the Force. You know what I'm saying? We Jedis over here. Man, kill all that noise, bro. Bump all that, bro. Now Francis Ngannou's legacy is going to be tarnished based out of he still has a small window of fight because he is only getting older. But he's not going to be able to fight for the UFC. And it doesn't matter for the PFL. And then whoever is advising this man, they a bunch of buffoons as well because they couldn't rein him in and have him fight Jake Paul. He could have went out there and beat the brakes off of Jake Paul, bro, and made like $50 million like Anthony Joshua was about to do. He's holding out for what? Did you want a rematch against Joshua? Joshua was like, pump them brakes. I'm going to go make this easy bag of Jake Paul real quick. And Francis acted like he felt insulted by the fact that they would offer him Jake Paul, like he felt insulted. My dude, you've had 2 boxing matches and you lost both of them. Your first one, you almost accomplished something that would have been unheard of. It would have etched you in the history books of boxing and mixed martial arts if he would have beat Tyson Fury. But my dude, it did not happen. And the news cycle has moved on. The U.S. is in turmoil right now with the commander-in-chief. Nobody's tripping on what you did back in the day against Tyson Fury or Cyril Gane or any of these people, bro. Or you coming back to defeat Stipe Miocic. And how you had to have heart and gut it out and do all these things and your major win over, you know, man, I'm not even going to get into it. It's just wild, bro. That now all he's going to be able to do is go back and fight again for the PFL because they're not going to take him. I don't think they're going to take him on the UFC side because the UFC cannot risk re-signing Francis Ngannou who seems like he's a problem to work with, locking him in the cage with John Jones for the White House card, and then he beats John Jones. How much egg would be on the face of Uncle Dana White if that was to happen? They're not going to take that chance. It's a wrap for him in the UFC. It's a wrap. And the PFL sucks. And they might not be around in the next few years. And there's nobody over there. And what else is he going to do? He ain't going to one championship. What else is he going to do? What's he going to go to BKFC? Yeah, I'd like to see Francis Ngannou beat the brakes off of some cat's bare knuckle. But still, man, that seems like a step down, not fighting Jake Paul. Jake Paul and Netflix are going to do numbers. Jake Paul's fight with Mike Tyson dwarfed Canelo Alvarez versus Bud Crawford. You know what I'm saying? Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul is going to dwarf everything. It's like a holiday weekend. It's the weekend before the holidays, my dude. What are we doing with Francis Ngannou? I feel bad for the man because he could have had a legacy. Yeah, he made a lot of money. He was still going to make a lot of money in the UFC. And the way that I saw Francis Ngannou, there's a good chance if he would have stayed in the UFC, who was going to beat that man at heavyweight? Until maybe Tom Aspinall come along. I got John Jones on my wall. I'm a huge John Jones fan. Not the man, but the fighter. But there was a good chance. I was a little shaky, a little scared. You know what I'm saying? Your boy Matt was sweating. There was a good chance Francis Ngannou could have beaten John Jones. Back after he just beat Cyril Gane on one leg? On one leg? Imagine his legacy if he was the one to go out there and beat John Jones. I know everybody's going to say John was never going to fight him, whatever. But if they could have made that deal, what would that have been like? What if he would have beat Tom Aspinall? What if he would have ran the gambit and still been holding the heavyweight championship right now? He would have been solidified. He could have wrote his own check in the UFC, bro. He would have been solidified. His legacy not blemished in mixed martial arts. The what ifs of it all is amazing, bro. It's amazing. But instead, because a bunch of journalists latched on to the man and told him, you know, Dana's evil and the UFC's evil and you could go elsewhere and make that money, and he did. But had he stayed behind, his mixed martial arts legacy would have been intact. And so let's say overall, Francis Ngannou, do you see Francis Ngannou advertising Gatorade? Do you see him advertising Nike? Do you see him showing up on the Breakfast Club doing interviews? Do you see the man anywhere? No, of course you don't. Of course you don't. And where would he have been at had he stayed with the biggest organization in the world, the UFC? Well on its way to being the NFL. Well on its way to being the NBA. Where would he have been? You know what I'm saying? Instead, he goes to the PFL and wastes away. Yeah, he made a lot of money, but bro, what does it mean if your name is not in the history books? It's not there. He'll be forgotten about. You know what I'm saying? He'll be forgotten about. And he was such a special fighter and a special person. But I just think he's been misguided his whole career. And I get it. He made a lot of money. But something tells me, yeah, he might have been off by 5 million, 10 million maybe. But the UFC drummed up a good 30 million to give to John to fight Tom. If Francis was still the heavyweight champion, what type of bargaining power would he have had? What if he would have fought and beat John Jones? What type of bargaining power would that man have had? Could he have went to a lot of other brands and organizations and named his price and done what he wanted to do? I would say so. Because he can't walk in these meetings and talk about, I'm a heavyweight fighter for the PFL. They don't even have a real heavyweight championship belt. It gets given out every year with a whole new tournament. And I guess Hannon Ferreira, is he supposed to be the man now? The heavyweight champion? Man, get out of here, man. Watch out, bro. It's sad, bro. This Friday, I believe, Jake Paul will step in the ring with Anthony Joshua. No doubt, Anthony Joshua will win this fight, right? He's going to make a tremendous amount of money. He's going to have all the eyes of the world on him, on this spectacle of him fighting Jake Paul. And he was smart enough that when they contacted Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn hit him up, he was smart enough to know, man, there's no way. This is not Andy Ruiz that defeated Anthony Joshua. This is not Alexander Usyk. This is Jake Paul. When Eddie Hearn hit him up and was like, this is how much money they offering, that's an easy payday. As long as Anthony Joshua took him seriously and trained and goes in there and performs the way Anthony Joshua should, it's an easy paycheck. And that could have been Big Francis's paycheck. And that would have catapulted you right in the spotlight of where you need to be in boxing. Now you've got something to bargain with because you got the highest watched, most viewed fight on Netflix against Jake Paul, and you waxed him, knocked him out, made a tremendous bag. Now you can talk shit to Dana White and the UFC, because that's like another 50 million. Now you're like, man, I'm 100 billion up. What y'all got to say now? And now I want a rematch with Anthony Joshua. Whether or not they would have gave it to you, I don't know. But maybe it's would have enticed Deontay Wilder to fight you. You would have had all the cards, bro, all the chips. But instead you listen to, Francis, I think that you listen to Ariel Helwani and whoever else is in your ear. And now look at you, man. You're not going to be able to fight for the UFC. Who wants to fight for the PFL? Okay, so they'll resign you. I don't even know if they want you back because you ain't did nothing for them. What is going to happen then, man? Watch out. I feel bad, bro. Shout out to Francis Ngannou, Big Frank the Tank, as I've come to refer to him on my channel. Shout out to Anthony Joshua. He saw that train about to pull out the station and he was like, oh, not so fast. Let me buy my ticket for that Jake Paul train real quick. Go get these 50 M's and chill, or 100 M's and chill. It's a sad state of affairs, man. Please let me know what you think. That's the point of this channel. Is it Matt, which is my opinion, or is it fact? You know what I'm saying? Please let me know what you think. Please like, subscribe, comment. I appreciate you guys for checking out these videos. And once again, I do want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Matter of Fact MMA. And I'll check you next time. Peace.